On my way home from work, I bought some oranges for $22. I was in the middle of asking the vendor if he could knock off $2 when my boyfriend Ethan suddenly slapped me across the face. God, you're embarrassing. Making a scene over $2. Looks like Rena was right about you all along. You really did let her mom die just because you were short $1 on her medication. If I'd known what kind of person you were, I would have chosen Rena when the kidnappers gave me a choice. I should have saved her, not you. He grabbed the bag of oranges out of my hands and threw them on the ground. Then he walked away without looking back. I stood there watching him go. The vendor didn't know what to do. He quickly scooped up another bag of oranges and held them out to me. I shook my head. I didn't want the oranges. I didn't want him either. Ethan didn't come home all night. I sat staring at the oranges scattered across the table, feeling a hollow kind of sadness settle in my chest. The scene this afternoon had been loud enough to attract a crowd. Someone had filmed it and posted it to social media. She's a gold digger, plain and simple. Spent all his money, and now she's pinching pennies over a few oranges. Pathetic. Can't blame the guy. Anyone would lose it. The comments piled on, one after another. The video spread fast. I told myself it didn't matter. Just gossip. It would pass. Then I saw Ethan's account. He had liked every single comment attacking me. My heart skipped a beat. For a moment, I couldn't process it. So that's what he really thinks of me. 7 years together. 7 years of watching every dollar, cutting every corner. If Ethan hadn't crashed his business and buried us in debt, I never would have haggled over $2 in the first place. Everything I did for him. And somehow, in the end, he decided I was the villain. My eyes filled with tears before I could stop them. Everything blurred. And without meaning to, my mind drifted back through all the years with Ethan. This morning, he had pressed a soft kiss to my forehead before he left. At lunch, he had gotten annoyed that I'd ordered cheap takeout, then turned around and cooked a proper meal and brought it to my office himself. And then, just a few hours later, he became someone I didn't recognize. My cheeks still throbbed where he'd hit me. I couldn't make sense of it. That was when my phone rang. It was my best friend, Lily. I wiped my face fast and swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. She'd probably seen the post. And the likes. I was going to tell her I was fine, but she spoke first. I just saw Ethan walk into a club with a woman. I think it's Rena. The name hit me like cold water. I made her repeat it, asked again and again, until I heard the certainty in her voice. That can't be right. Rena moved abroad years ago. And Ethan deleted all her contacts right in front of me. He even changed his phone number. He did it himself. My voice trailed off without me noticing. I was running through every detail in my head, desperate to prove that Ethan and Rena had truly cut ties. But I couldn't lie to myself. Lily had gone to school with Rena. She wouldn't mistake her. When the truth finally landed, the strength went out of my legs. I slid down to the floor. Breathing became difficult. I forced myself up and stumbled toward Ethan's home office. Ethan had always been particular about that room. From the day we moved in together, he'd made one thing clear. I was never to go inside. Looking back now, that terrified me. I didn't care about his rules anymore. I tore through the entire room. I found it at the back of a cabinet. A box. My hands were shaking when I opened it. Inside were letters. All from Rena. Packed in so tight there was barely room for another. The dates were recent. The most recent one from just a week ago. Ethan, I can't take it anymore. I'm coming home. The paper was stained with dried tears. Standing there reading it, I started to laugh. I couldn't help it. Their love was so intense they had gone back to handwritten letters just to express it. No wonder Ethan had always been so quick to hand me his phone to check. No wonder he'd always kept me updated on his schedule without being asked. No wonder he spent entire afternoons locked in this room, then came out smiling. It all made sense now, including the slap. We were supposed to celebrate our 7-year anniversary today. He hadn't been upset about the oranges. He was upset because Rena had come back. I took every letter and went to find them at the club. The moment I walked through the door, I spotted Ethan at the center of it all. He looked drunk. He'd climbed up onto a table and was holding court, talking at full volume. An occupational hazard of being a public speaker, I supposed. Rena sat below him, gazing up at him like he was the only person in the room. I had seen that exact expression on her face back in high school the first time Ethan gave an impromptu speech on stage. Someone in the crowd decided to egg him on. "What's your biggest regret?" Ethan's smile disappeared. He went quiet. His brow furrowed. He turned and looked at Rena, and his eyes went soft with guilt. Years ago, when someone put a gun to our heads and told me to choose, I couldn't choose Rena. That's the one thing I'll regret for the rest of my life. She told me to go find help while she stayed behind. I didn't know she was going to call the police. Because of that, she almost got seriously hurt. If I could go back, I would choose her. Without hesitation. Rena burst into tears.
So did I.
7 years ago, we were kidnapped together. Ethan hadn't brought enough money for the ransom. The kidnappers said they'd release only one of us. He gripped my hand so hard I thought his fingers would break the skin. After a long silence, his voice finally cracked through. He called my name. In that moment, I forgave Ethan for everything. I made a silent promise to love him with everything I had. So I quietly contacted the police. We worked together from the inside, and the kidnappers were taken down. When I handed Ethan the recovered money afterward, something flickered behind his eyes. Anger. I hadn't understood it then. Now I did. He blamed me. In the chaos of the police moving in, one of the kidnappers had panicked and hurt Rena. Standing in that club, I finally felt it. How ridiculous I had been. How ridiculous all of it had been. The story seemed to sober Ethan up a little. He looked at Rena with even more tenderness than before. Rena, we can't go back. That was my fault. All of it. But I want to make it up to you. Starting now. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a bank card. My tears dried up instantly. That was my bank card. Ethan, have you lost your mind? I pushed through the crowd and got right in front of them. My eyes were fixed on that card. But just as I was about to grab it, Ethan stepped aside. He closed his hand around the card and turned on me, his face tight with anger. Ethan, you can't use that card. That's everything we have saved. I was almost shaking. Ethan just looked at me.
Calm.
Unmoved. Watching me fall apart like it was entertainment. So what?
You owe Rena that much.
Holly, how long are you going to keep up this act? From the day we got together, I handed you every paycheck from every gig for 7 years. And you still nickel and dimed everything. The numbers never added up. When our eyes met, he felt like a stranger. Had he forgotten?
He still owed a debt.
Ethan, that money was for paying off the… He cut me off before I could finish. Without a second's hesitation, he shoved me aside, turned, and pressed the card into Rena's hand. Then he stepped in front of her like a shield. He looked at me like I was a threat. Holly, don't forget you still owe me for the money you skimmed. I expect that back. Rena and I have missed enough time. I'm done wasting more. He said it like he was reading a verdict, then turned away. The music came back up. Ethan disappeared into the crowd on the dance floor. Like nothing had happened. I was the only one still standing there, frozen.
It was all my fault.
I had protected him too well. Every time a creditor showed up at the door, I was the one who faced them alone. I cut back on everything, worked myself down to the bone, all to pay off his debt as fast as I could. And in the end, I had nothing left. Not even the one thing I used to be most proud of. My love. The girl I used to be never could have imagined things ending up like this. Ethan grew up without much. He was always hungry as a kid. From the time we were in elementary school, I used to split my breakfast with him every morning. Ethan loved to talk. He would climb up on the big rock by the river and use it as a stage, while I crouched below and played audience. Then when we were 14, Ethan hurt his throat. He stopped showing up at the river. After a few days, I started to panic. I searched for him all day before I finally found him on the roof of an abandoned building. He said he didn't want to be alive anymore. My voice is gone. What's the point of any of this? I grabbed him and dragged him straight to my father, Dr. Carter. I promised, with everything I had, that my father could fix his throat. My father was the most respected doctor in the whole area. Several months of treatment. Countless bowls of medicinal soup. Ethan's voice came back, exactly as it had been. He came back afterward with money to pay for the treatment. I shook my head and refused to take it. That day, Ethan looked at me for a long time. There was something deep in his expression I couldn't quite name. Finally, he turned toward the sun and made a vow. He would take care of me for the rest of his life. He would never stop trusting me. In high school, he kept that promise. But once Rena developed feelings for Ethan, she decided I was her enemy. Rena was a little dumber than I had given her credit for. She didn't even bother being subtle about it. She slipped a laxative into my drink so I'd embarrass myself in PE class. She organized a ugliest girl poll with her crew and put my name at the top. It was anonymous, but she used the notepads she'd been showing off to everyone just days before. When Ethan found out what she'd been doing to me, he gave a small, cold laugh. I didn't know people this stupid still existed. The disdain was all over his face, but the corner of his mouth had curved up. I didn't bother retaliating, so Rena thought she was getting away with it clean. Until she made the mistake of posting by name on a school forum. My mom was really sick. I had all the money for her prescription, but Holly refused to fill it because I was $1 short. Because of her, my mom almost didn't make it. It was a lie full of holes. But somehow, a lot of people believed it. I couldn't walk down the hall without hearing people call me a murderer. Then Ethan stepped in. He walked straight up to one of them and slapped them across the face, without saying a word. He said he believed me.
I was so moved that day.
So moved I didn't notice the way his jaw had tightened, just slightly, at the corner of his mouth. Maybe everything had been wrong from the very beginning. Rena never let go of her hatred. Ethan never truly trusted me. How ridiculous. I dragged myself up and stumbled toward the bathroom. I needed to splash some water on my face, clear my head. But when I looked in the mirror, I saw Rena standing behind me. "What do you want?" She gave me a smile. Strange. A little too pleased with herself. "Holly, I just feel so insecure. I want to know, if he had to choose between us right now, who would he pick?" I didn't follow her right away. A second later, Rena twisted the lock on the door and set fire to the trash can. Within seconds, flames had spread across the entire bathroom floor. Smoke swallowed the room. I moved toward the door, but Rena was already blocking it. She didn't move. Then Ethan's voice came from the other side. He pounded on the door, calling Rena's name over and over. Rena smiled. "See, Holly? I win." Honestly, I always thought Ethan loved me just a little bit more. "You were just a distraction. A temporary one. You must be crushed right now, just like I was 7 years ago."
Ister here.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was choking on smoke. I might actually die in here. And she was standing there gloating about Ethan's love for her. I used every ounce of strength I had and shoved her out of the way. But the door chose that exact moment to jam. Any chance of getting out on our own was gone. When the smoke finally hit Rena's lungs, the confidence drained out of her face. "Ethan, help me. I just wanted to see who you'd choose. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Of course I'd choose you, baby. Don't be scared. I'm getting you out of there right now." It felt like forever before Ethan finally forced the door open. He rushed in, scooped Rena up in his arms, and carried her out. He never looked at me once. At that point, I didn't really care. I just needed to get out. What I hadn't expected was for Ethan to turn around after stepping out and kick the door shut behind him. The bathroom door jammed again. I couldn't hold on much longer. Through the haze, the last image that kept surfacing was Ethan's foot connecting with that door. So that's how much he hates me. Enough to leave me here to die. If I could go back, I would go back to when we were 14. I would leave him on that rooftop. He never deserved to be saved. When I came to, I was in a hospital room. A nurse came in to check on me. She glanced toward the door and asked, almost as an afterthought, "No family with you?" I shook my head. Ethan wasn't coming.
And I didn't want him to.
I had spent enough years squeezing every penny until it hurt. I checked myself out immediately and went home to pack. Ethan was still at the hospital with Rena. I was rolling my suitcase out the front door when Rena posted on her Instagram, "What's meant for you always finds its way back. No one can take what's yours." That actually made me laugh out loud. She wasn't wrong. What belonged to Ethan should go back to him. I pulled up a contact I had saved a long time ago and sent over Ethan's location.
Then I stopped thinking about it.
I got on a train headed back to my hometown. As the scenery outside the window grew more and more familiar, something in me went quiet. Then Ethan called. "Holly, you cleaned out the whole apartment. What is wrong with you? Just because Rena came back, you pull this little stunt? I'm telling you, I'm not falling for your manipulation again." The fury in his voice came through the phone like heat. I could even hear things being thrown and broken in the background. Go ahead. Everything he could throw was already his. Everything I'd bought, I'd taken with me. I waited until he ran out of steam before I said anything. Didn't I leave a few things behind? "Someone will be delivering them to you shortly." Ethan went quiet. He started to say something, but the door flew open before he could.
No knocking.
No warning. "Hey, you know why I'm here. Time to pay up." The silence on the other end of the line did not last long. Through the receiver, I heard the heavy, unmistakable sound of a solid wood door splintering against the frame. Then came the harsh, scraping sound of heavy boots on the hardwood floor of the apartment I had just vacated. "Who the hell are you?" Ethan's voice through the phone was sharp, defensive, and dripping with the arrogant authority he usually reserved for his public speaking gigs. "This is private property. Get the hell out of my home." "Your home." A rough, gravelly voice cut through the air, even through the cheap speaker of my phone. The menace in that voice was palpable. "That's funny,
Ethan.
because according to our records, this apartment, the furniture, and even the clothes on your back are collateral. And since the lady who actually kept us From breaking your legs every month just walked out. We're here to collect the principal. What are you talking about? Ethan stammered. I could hear the sudden, trembling shift in his tone. The bravado was gone, replaced by a high-pitched, defensive whine. My debt was paid off years ago. Holly told me the business accounts were settled. Holly paid your interest, you idiot, the gravelly voice spat. For 7 years, she worked 3 jobs, skipped meals, and brought us cash every single month just to keep us from dragging you into an alley. She signed a personal guarantee. But guess what? An hour ago, she filed for a legal separation of assets, revoked her guarantee, and handed us your current address, along with a copy of your recent bank statements. No, that's impossible. She wouldn't do that. She loves me. Ethan's voice
Cracked.
and I have money. I have a bank card right here. You mean the card you just handed to that little piece of work at the club? The man laughed, a dry, mocking sound. We already ran it. That account is locked, Ethan. The moment Holly revoked her guarantee, the bank froze all joint assets to offset the outstanding liabilities. You're broke. Actually, worse than
Broke.
you owe us $350,000. And the interest rate just jumped. Wait, please. Let me call her. Holly. Holly, are you listening? I know you're still on the phone. Ethan screamed into the receiver. His voice was frantic. Now, a pathetic contrast to the man who had slapped me across the face over $2 just 24 hours ago. Holly, tell them you'll pay it. You can't do this to me. We've been together for 7 years. 7 years, Ethan, I said softly. My voice didn't shake. For the first time in nearly a decade, my chest felt completely light. And for 7 years, I was the only one paying. Have fun with the leftovers. I hung up. I took the SIM card out of my phone, cracked it in half, and tossed it into the metal trash bin on the train platform. The train hissed to a stop in front of me. I lifted my suitcase, stepped aboard, and didn't look back. The train ride to my hometown took 5 hours. By the time the train pulled into the small mountain ring station, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm, amber glow over the pine trees and old stone buildings. This was the place where I had grown up. The air here tasted different, cleaner, sharper, free of the smog and heavy exhaustion of the city where I had spent 7 years suffocating. I walked down the quiet streets toward the clinic. Carter Medical Clinic, read the modest, brass sign on the door. It was polished to a high shine, just as it had been when I was a child. My father, Dr. James Carter, was a man of routine and quiet dignity. He had spent his entire life serving this community, treating patients who couldn't afford city prices, and earning a level of respect that money could never buy. When I pushed the door open, the bell chimed softly. My father was sitting at his desk, reviewing a stack of patient charts. His hair was completely silver now, and there were deeper lines around his eyes, but his posture was as straight as ever. He looked up, his eyes widening in surprise, which quickly turned into deep warmth. Holly, he said, rising from his chair. But as he came closer, his smile vanished. His gaze locked onto my face. Even though I had tried to cover it with makeup, the swelling on my left cheek was still visible, a faint, yellowish-green bruise where Ethan's hand had
Connected with my skin.
My clothes were clean, but my hands were raw, and my eyes were red from the smoke of the club's bathroom. My father didn't ask any questions. He didn't demand to know who had done it. He simply reached out, took my suitcase from my hand, and pulled me into a quiet, firm hug. You're home, he whispered. That's all that matters. You're home. For the first time since the fire, the tears came. But they weren't tears of
Grief.
They were tears of relief, washing away the toxic residue of a life I should have abandoned years ago. That night, over a simple bowl of hot noodle soup my father had made, we sat in the quiet kitchen of my childhood home. I heard about what happened in the city, my father said quietly, setting his chopsticks down. Lily called me. She was worried sick about you. I'm sorry, Dad, I murmured, staring at my hands. I should have listened to
You.
When I left 7 years ago, you told me Ethan was a man who built his life
On sand.
You said he would drag me down with him. You loved him, Holly. Love makes us blind to the rotten wood in the foundation, my father said, his voice gentle but firm. But you're out now. That is what matters. He took my savings card and gave it to Rena, I said, a bitter laugh escaping my throat. He told everyone I was a gold digger who let Rena's mother die over $1. He actually believed it, Dad. He stood there in front of a whole crowd and said he regretted saving me instead of her. My father's expression darkened. The quiet, gentle country doctor suddenly looked incredibly formidable. He said, "What about Rena's mother?" My father asked, his voice dropping an octave. "Rena posted it on the school forum years ago." I explained. "She claimed her mother was terribly ill and that I refused to dispense her prescription at our clinic because she was $1 short. She said that's why her mother died." My father stood up, walked over to a locked filing cabinet in the corner of his study, and pulled out an old, dusty binder. He flipped through the pages with practiced ease before stopping at a section labeled with the letter R. "Rena's mother, Sarah Vance," my father said, reading from the record.
"She died
8 years ago of advanced cardiovascular failure. Do you know why she didn't get her medication, Holly?" I shook my head. I always assumed Rena was just lying to make me look bad. "She was lying, but the truth is much worse," my father said, turning the medical chart toward me. "Sarah Vance came to this clinic. I wrote her a prescription for her heart medication. The cost was $45. We didn't even charge her a copay because we knew they were struggling. But Rena was the one who came to pick it up." My father pointed to a photocopied receipt stapled to the back of the chart. "Rena had the $45, but she refused to pay for the medicine. She told our receptionist that she needed the money for something more important. Our records show we offered to let her take the medicine anyway and pay us back later. We never, ever turned a patient away over money, let alone a single
dollar."
Rena refused. She took the cash, left the clinic, and spent it on a limited edition leather satchel to show off at school. I stared at the record. The receipt was signed by Rena herself, with a note from our receptionist at the bottom. Patient's daughter refused the medication, stating they would purchase it elsewhere. Declined our offer of a payment plan. She killed her own mother, I whispered, the horror of it chilling my blood. She spent the medicine money on a bag, and then she blamed me to cover her own guilt. And Ethan believed her, my father said, his jaw tightening. Or perhaps he simply found it convenient to believe her because it gave him an excuse to feel like a martyr. He closed the folder with a sharp snap. "There is something else you need to know about Ethan, Holly. Something I never told you because I didn't want to break your heart when you were still determined to marry him." I looked up, my chest tightening. "What is it?" "When Ethan was 14 and he lost his voice," my father began, his eyes reflecting the memory of that difficult year. "You brought him to me, begging me to save him. You promised me he was a good boy. You treated him for free," I said. "We spent months making those herbal soups. The herbs were just a supplement," my father said flatly. "Ethan's vocal cords had a severe, degenerative cyst. The only way to save his voice was a highly specialized microlaryngeal surgery. At the time, there were only 3 surgeons in the country who could perform it. I had to pull every favor I had accumulated in 30 years of medicine to get him on the operating table." He looked at me, his eyes full of a deep, paternal sorrow. "The surgery cost $80,000. Ethan's family didn't have 80 cents. I paid for it myself, Holly. I paid for it out of your college fund. Because you cried and begged me to save his dream. I never told him, and I never told you, because I wanted him to feel like he earned his voice back through hard work." I sat frozen, the weight of my father's sacrifice crashing down on me. $80,000. In the early 2010s, that was a fortune for a country
Doctor.
And my father had given it away, quietly, without demanding a single thank you, just to keep a smile on my face. And Ethan? Ethan had used that very voice to scream at me, to belittle me, to order a crowd to mock me, and to tell the world he regretted my very existence. "He wants to be a public speaker," I said, my voice dropping to a cold, hard whisper. "He built his entire career on the voice you gave him." "Then it's time we remind him," my father said, his voice as calm as a winter morning, "that what is given can also be taken away." Within 3 days, the internet did what it always does. It shifted its focus. But not before Ethan tried to make one final, desperate play. As his debts mounted and the loan sharks began to squeeze him, Ethan realized he was losing his grip. He needed money, and he needed it fast. His public speaking engagements were being canceled because of the viral video of him slapping me. To the corporate world, he was a liability. But to his hardcore followers, he was still a victim of a manipulative woman. He decided to host a live-streamed confession. My friend Lily sent me the link on Friday evening. Holly, you need to see this. He's putting it all out there. He's completely unhinged. I opened my laptop. On the screen, Ethan was sitting in a dimly lit room. He looked terrible. His hair was messy, his eyes were bloodshot, and he was wearing a cheap, wrinkled shirt, a far cry from the tailored suits I used to iron for him. Every morning, Rena was sitting next to him, holding his hand, looking pale and fragile with a light bandage wrapped around her wrist from the fire. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, Ethan began, his voice raspy, though he tried to maintain his usual projection. As many of you know, my life has been turned upside down over the last few days. The woman I trusted for 7 years, the woman I gave everything to, has abandoned me. She cleared out our home, stole my life savings, and left me to face ruin. The comment section began to scroll by at lightning speed. What a monster. I knew she was a gold digger. How could she do that to him? After he saved her from the kidnappers? Ethan squeezed Rena's hand, giving a tragic, heroic sigh. But through it all, the truth has finally come to light. The woman sitting next to me is the one who truly deserved my protection. 7 years ago, when we were taken, I made the wrong choice. I was manipulated by Holly's tears. Because of my mistake, Rena suffered. She was injured by the kidnappers, and she carried that trauma alone. For 7 years, while Holly lived in luxury on my income, Rena looked down, squeezing out a well-timed tear. I don't blame Ethan. He was lied to. Holly told him that if he didn't choose her, her father, who is a powerful doctor, would ruin Ethan's career. We were just kids. We didn't know how to fight back. That's right, Ethan chimed in, his voice rising with theatrical indignation. And now, Holly's father is using his medical influence to harass us. They've frozen my bank accounts. They're sending thugs to my door. They want us silence us because we know the truth about what Holly did to Rena's mother. The live stream view count was climbing. 50,000, 80,000, 100,000. I sat at my desk, watching the screen. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel hurt. I felt a cold, clinical detachment. Are you ready, Holly? Lily's voice came through my phone. She was on a conference call with me, her finger hovering over the upload button on her own social media accounts. Do it, I said. While Ethan was still speaking, spinning his web of lies to over 100,000 viewers, a series of posts began to flood the internet. We didn't write a long, emotional essay. We didn't beg for sympathy. We simply posted documents. Post 1. The financial ledger of 7 years. It was a comprehensive, certified financial audit of Ethan's failed business, along with every single bank transfer from my personal account to his creditors over the last 7 years. It showed black on white that Ethan had not contributed a single dollar to our living expenses since 2019. Instead, his income had been funneled into a private offshore account and a secondary credit card that was used exclusively to pay for luxury hotel stays, high-end dinners, and designer jewelry shipped to an address in Paris. Rena's address. The total amount of debt I had paid off for him, $342,000. The total amount he had spent on Rena while I was eating instant noodles, $118,000. Post 2. The medical record of Sarah Vance. A high-resolution scan of the medical chart from Carter Medical Clinic, complete with Rena's signature refusing her mother's heart medication. Attached to it was a bank statement from the same week, showing Rena had purchased a $400 designer bag the very next day. Post 3. The kidnapping police report. The official police transcript from 7 years ago. It detailed the investigation into the kidnapping. It turned out, the kidnappers weren't random criminals. They were associates of Ethan's failed business partner, whom Ethan had scammed out of $100,000. Ethan had set up the meeting, knowing it was dangerous, and when things went south, he used Holly's presence as a shield. The police report clearly stated, the victim, Holly Carter, negotiated with law enforcement to secure the release of all hostages. The secondary victim, Rena Vance, sustained a minor scratch to her wrist due to her own refusal to cooperate with officers during the extraction. But the final blow was a video file. It was the security footage from the club's bathroom hallway, recovered by the police department's arson investigation unit. The video was crystal clear. It showed Rena entering the bathroom, locking the door, and deliberately pouring lighter fluid into the trash can before setting it alight. It showed her gloating, refusing to let me leave. And then, it showed the door being forced open. Ethan rushed in, grabbed Rena, and ran out. But the video didn't stop there. It showed Ethan looking back into the smoke-filled room. He saw me, stumbling, coughing, reaching out for help. With a look of pure, cold hatred, Ethan raised his foot and kicked the heavy, fire-rated door shut. He didn't just leave me. He trapped me. He jammed the latch from the outside with a metal bar from the hallway display, ensuring I couldn't open it. The comment section on Ethan's live stream suddenly went dead silent. Then, the wave of comments broke. But they weren't attacking me anymore. Oh my god. Is this real? Look at the trending page. He tried to kill her. He literally locked her in a burning room. The girl set the fire herself. Look at the video. He spent $118,000 on his mistress while his girlfriend was paying his debts. What a parasite. On the screen, Ethan's face began to change. He was watching the chat, his eyes darting back and forth as the abuse turned on him like a tidal wave. This is fake. Ethan stammered, his voice cracking violently.
These
are fabricated documents. Holly is using her father's money to forge these. Ethan, Rena whispered, her face draining of all color as she looked at her own
phone.
Ethan, the police, they're outside. Through the live stream, we could hear the faint, rising wail of sirens. Then came the heavy knocking on the door. Police department. Open the door. Rena panicked, jumping up from her seat and knocking her chair over. It wasn't
me.
It was his idea. He told me to do it. He said if we made Holly look bad, she wouldn't dare ask for the money back. Rena, shut up. Ethan screamed, but his voice was dry, apathetic, strangled.
Squeak.
He tried to yell, but his throat, already weakened by years of neglect, and further damaged by the smoke inhalation from the club fire, failed him entirely. Only a hoarse, wet hiss came out of his mouth. The door was kicked open. Several uniformed officers stormed into the room, tackling Ethan to the ground. As he tried to scramble away, Rena was handcuffed immediately, her screams of protest echoing through the microphone until an officer reached over and shut the live stream down. The screen went black. 2 weeks later, the autumn leaves were falling thick and fast in my hometown. I was sitting in the clinic's small garden, holding a warm cup of tea, when my father walked out to join me. He handed me a local newspaper from the city. The headline was small, but satisfying. Local public speaker and accomplice charged with arson, attempted murder, and fraud. Ethan's lawyer tried to contact me yesterday, my father said, taking a sip of
his own tea.
He wanted to know if I would testify regarding Ethan's medical
history.
He's trying to claim that Ethan's actions were the result of psychological trauma from his childhood throat injury. What did you tell him?
I asked.
I told him that as a doctor, my ethical duty is to the truth, my father said calmly. And the truth is, Ethan's throat is structurally sound. Or rather, it was. I looked at him, curious. What do you mean? The smoke inhalation from the fire, combined with his hysterical screaming during the arrest, caused a severe hemorrhage in his vocal cords, my father explained, his voice entirely devoid of sympathy. Because he was in holding, and because he refused to cooperate with the prison doctors, the damage. Scarified. The microlaryngeal graft I put in when he was 14 has completely torn away. I stared at the garden. Can it be fixed? Only by me, my father said softly. And I have officially retired from surgical practice. I felt a quiet, profound sense of justice wash over me. Ethan had traded his soul for a voice, and then used that voice to destroy the person who gave it to him. Now he would spend the rest of his life in a concrete cell, unable to speak above a raspy, painful whisper. No more stages. No more public speaking. No more lies. The next day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from the prison's legal department. Ethan had written it himself, by hand, since he could no longer speak to his attorney without agonizing pain. The handwriting was shaky, a far cry from the bold, arrogant signatures he used to sign his books with. Holly, please.
Tell your father to help me. My voice is gone.
I can't breathe. Without pain. I'll give you everything. I'll sign the debt papers. I'll tell everyone the truth. I'll tell them Rena forced me to do it.
Just please don't.
Leave me like this. We were 14, Holly. Remember the river? Remember the rock we used to climb? You promised you'd always listen to me. I read the letter twice. Then, I walked over to the old, stone fireplace in the living room. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I tossed the paper into the glowing embers, watching as the flames caught the edges, turning his frantic, desperate words into black ash. I did remember the river. I remembered the 14-year-old boy who had lost
his way.
but that boy had died a long time ago. Or perhaps he had never existed at any
Cost.
The man who replaced him was a monster of his own making, and I was, finally, completely done pulling him out of the fire. Holly. Lily's voice called out from the front door. She stepped into the clinic, a bright, beautiful smile on her face. The weather is perfect today. Let's go down to the market. I heard they have fresh oranges. I looked up, and for the first time in 7 years, a genuine, radiant smile spread across my face. Oranges sound perfect, I said. I grabbed my coat, took my father's arm as we walked out together, and stepped into the warm, golden light of a brand new day.